the silent stage. Close your eyes now. Let your breathing become slow and deep, like the gentle rise and fall of a sleeping ocean. Imagine you are standing at the edge of a vast, quiet night. The air is cool and still. Above you, the stars are scattered like diamond dust across a velvet sky. We are here to begin a journey, not into noise or hurry, but into the deep, careful silence of discovery. We are going to learn how to listen to the stories that places tell us. In our story, we are not rushing. We are the watchers. We are the ones who come after the event, when the world has grown quiet again. In the Book of Secrets we are reading, this is called the scene. Think of a place where something has happened. It might be a room with a heavy wooden door, or a wide open field covered in fresh white snow. It might be a long wooden wharf stretching out into a calm, dark harbor. To a writer of mystery novels, the scene is simple. It is just the room where the story took place. But to us, the watchers, the scene is something more. It is a puzzle made of whispers. The book tells us that the scene is not just one spot. It is like a ripple in a pond. It is the place where the event happened, yes, but it is also the path leading to it, and the path leading away. It is the quiet road where a car traveled. It is the hotel room miles away. It is a web of connection, stretching out across the map. Sometimes the scene is very large. Imagine a path 3 miles long, stretching across the earth. Or imagine a scene as huge as a building. But sometimes the scene is tiny. It can be small enough to fit in your pocket. A nylon bag, small and soft, holding a computer, can be a whole world of secrets. Or think of a simple glass phone booth, standing alone under a street lamp. Just the keypad and the receiver can be the entire scene, holding the memory of a voice. Size does not matter here. A tiny bag can hold a story just as deep as a large building. When we first arrive at this quiet place, our most important job is to protect it. We call this role the first responder. Imagine you are this person. You are the guardian of the silence. You step into the circle of the story, and your first thought is safety. You look around. You breathe in the air. You listen. The scene is fragile. Like a painting made of sand, a single careless step could change it forever. We must move with the grace of a cloud. If we are not careful, we might brush away a story written in the dust. We might change the temperature of the room or move a window latch. So we pause. We observe. We assume the scene is delicate. We look at the paths leading in and out. We see the people who are there, perhaps waiting, perhaps needing help. We are calm. If someone needs care, we help them, but we move gently, creating a safe path that does not disturb the silent clues on the ground. We are careful not to change the lights, or the heat, or the open windows. We leave the world exactly as we found it, frozen in time. To keep the story safe, we create a boundary. You have seen the yellow tape before. In our journey, imagine this tape not as a barrier of warning, but as a ribbon of protection. It is a golden circle we draw around the memory of the event. Inside this circle, time stands still. Inside this circle, nothing new enters, and nothing leaves. We are creating a sanctuary for the truth. We start from the center, the heart of the event, and we work our way outward, expanding our circle of peace. We include the doors, the windows, and maybe a car parked silently nearby. We make sure that the wind does not blow away the leaves, and that the rain does not wash away the dust. If we see something precious, like a footprint in the mud, we might cover it gently to keep it safe from the weather. We also become scribes. We write down everything we see. We note the time, the weather, the smell of the air. We draw maps in our minds and on paper. We note who came and who went, keeping a log of every shadow that crossed the line. We are building a memory that will last forever, even after the snow melts or the sun sets. This is the first step of our science. It is the art of preservation. It is the act of holding a moment in your hands and keeping it safe. The scene of the crime has now become a crime scene, a secured library of evidence ready for us to read. Now, the stage is set. The golden ribbon is tied. The air is still. The secrets are waiting for us to find them. We can rest here for a moment, in the quiet safety of the boundary we have made. The noise of the world is outside. Inside, there is only the gentle wait for understanding. Sleep now or drift, knowing that the story is safe. When we return, we will begin to look closer. We will look for the tiny patterns left by fingers and feet. But for now, just breathe in the quiet. The scene is secure. We are back within our circle of silence. The yellow ribbon still protects our quiet space. The air is calm. We have looked at the big picture. The room, the path, the open door. Now we must change our eyes. We must learn to see the very small. We are going to look at the invisible maps we carry with us every day. In this chapter of our journey, we explore the friction ridges. These are the tiny lines on your fingertips, your palms, and the soles of your feet. Look at your hand for a moment in the soft light. It might look smooth, but it is actually a rugged landscape. It is made of hills and valleys. The hills are called ridges, and the valleys between them are called furrows. These ridges are nature's way of helping us hold on to the world. Like the tread on a tire, they give us grip. Without them, turning the page of a book would be difficult. But to the watcher of the scene, they are much more than tools for gripping. They are signatures. They are unique. No two people in the history of the world have the exact same pattern. Even identical twins, who share almost everything, have different fingerprints. We move through the scene looking for these marks. Some are easy to see. These are called patent prints. Imagine someone has touched a dark, shiny table with a dusty hand. The mark is clear. Or perhaps a finger pressed into a piece of soft chocolate in a box. This is called an impressed or plastic print. It is a three-dimensional memory, molded perfectly into the surface, like a seal in wax. But most of the time, the marks are hiding. These are called latent prints. They are invisible to our eyes. They are made of the natural oils and salts from our skin. To find them, we must become like magicians. We use soft brushes made of camel hair or feathers. We dip them gently into black powder. With a touch as light as a butterfly's wing, we sweep the powder over the surface. The powder clings to the oils, and suddenly the invisible map appears. Sometimes we use the air itself to find them. We use a special glue, the kind you might have in your kitchen drawer. When we warm this glue, it turns into a white mist or fume. This mist floats through the air and settles gently on the hidden prints. It hardens there, turning the invisible oils into a snowy white frost. It is a quiet chemistry that reveals the secrets of the past. Once the print is revealed, we look at the map. It is a beautiful swirl of lines. At first glance, it might look like a tangle of spaghetti. But if you look closer, there is order in the chaos. The lines flow in three main shapes. First, there are the arches. These look like gentle waves rising and falling across the fingertip. Some are steep, like a tent, but most are rolling hills. Then there are the loops. Imagine a river flowing into a bay, curving back around a bend, and flowing out the same way it came in. This is the loop. It is the most common pattern, a gentle curve of return. Finally, there are the whirls. These are the whirlpools of the finger. They spiral round and round, like an eddy in a stream, or the rings of a tree. They are circles within circles, but the map goes even deeper. We look for the tiny details, the minutiae. Follow one single ridgeline with your mind. Suddenly, it might stop. This is a ridge end, or perhaps the path splits into two, like a fork in the road. This is called a bifurcation. Sometimes the path splits and then comes back together, forming a small, empty space in the middle. We call this a lake or an enclosure. There are even tiny islands, short lines floating all alone in the sea of ridges. These tiny dots, lakes and islands, are what make you, you. A computer can scan them, turning the landscape into a constellation of numbers. It measures the distance from the lake to the island, from the fork to the end. It creates a code that belongs only to one person. We can even look closer still. We can look at the edges of the lines, a study called edgeoscopy. We can look at the tiny pores in the skin, the poroscopy, seeing the microscopic holes where the skin breathes. It is a universe of detail on the tip of a finger. So we collect these maps. We lift them with clear tape, preserving the pattern of dust. We take photographs. We treat them with care because they are the only thing in the world that cannot be stolen, borrowed, or forgotten. They are the eternal mark of presence. We leave the fingerprints safe in our collection now. We have learned to read the landscape of the hand. The scene is still quiet, but now it feels more populated. We know that invisible touches are everywhere, waiting for the soft brush of discovery. Rest now. Let the image of the swirling whirls and gentle arches drift in your mind like clouds. In the next part of our journey, we will look down at the ground. We will look for the heavier marks, the impressions left by shoes and wheels in the earth. But for now, sleep. The air in our quiet sanctuary is still. We have looked at the room, and we have looked at the tiny maps upon our hands. Now let us lower our gaze. Let us look down at the ground beneath our feet. The earth is a keeper of memories. It remembers the weight of those who pass over it, holding on to their stories in the dust, the mud, and the snow. In our Book of Secrets, this is called impression evidence, just like the fingerprints we found earlier. These marks come in two forms. Some are flat, like a shadow cast upon a floor. These are two-dimensional. Imagine a dusty shoe stepping onto a polished wooden floor, or a wet boot leaving a dark shape on the pavement. Others are deep and heavy. These are three-dimensional impressions. Think of a footprint pressed deep into soft garden soil, or a tire track cutting a long ribbon through fresh white snow. Let us begin with the phantom prints, the ones made of dust. Sometimes they are so faint that our eyes cannot see them. To find them, we use a tool that seems almost like magic. It is called an electrostatic dust lifter. We lay a sheet of silver film over the invisible print. Then, we apply a gentle charge of electricity. Like a balloon that sticks to a wall, the film attracts the tiny particles of dust from the floor. When we lift the film, the dust comes with it, revealing the perfect image of the shoe that walked there, a ghost captured on silver. These prints tell us more than just the brand of a shoe. They tell us a story of movement. We look at the trail of steps. Are they close together or far apart? The distance between the prints can whisper to us about the height of the traveler. A long stride suggests a tall person. A short stride, someone smaller. We look at how the foot touched the ground. Is the weight on the toes? Perhaps they were running. Is the print heavier on one side? Perhaps they were carrying something heavy. We can see where they paused, where they turned, and where they stood still to listen. Now, imagine we step outside. The ground here is soft. Here, the impressions are deep cups in the earth. To save these memories, we cannot use tape or electricity. We must become sculptors. We use a process called casting. We bring with us a special powder called dental stone. It is finer and stronger than ordinary plaster. We mix it with water until it is smooth and creamy, like a batter for a cake. We treat the footprint like a precious mold. If the earth is loose, we might spray it gently with something like hairspray to hold the grains of sand in place. Then we carefully pour the liquid stone into the impression. We let it flow into every crack and crevice, capturing the pattern of the tread, the tiny cuts in the rubber, and even the texture of the soil. We wait in the quiet while the stone hardens. As it sets, it warms up, a small chemical fire that turns the liquid into solid rock. When we lift it from the ground, we hold a perfect stone replica of the moment the foot pressed the earth. It is a permanent statue of a fleeting step. Sometimes, the world presents us with a challenge. Snow. Snow is beautiful, but it is fragile. If we pour our warm stone mixture directly onto it, the snow will melt and the story will wash away. So, we must be clever. We use a special wax, often called snow print wax. We spray this red wax over the white snow print. It acts like a shield, insulating the cold snow from the heat of the hardening stone. It freezes the shape in place, allowing us to cast a memory from the ice without destroying it. We also look for the tracks of machines. A car moving through our scene leaves long, parallel stories. These are tire tracks. Just as a shoe has a size, A car has a wheelbase, the distance between the wheels. By measuring the width of the tracks and the pattern of the tread, we can learn what kind of carriage passed this way. We can tell if it was turning, or slowing down, or speeding away. We can even tell if it was heavy with cargo. We cast these tracks too, pouring our stone into long sections of the earth, preserving the path of the traveler. There is one more type of mark we might find, often on a door or a window frame. These are tool marks. When a hard object, like a screwdriver, presses against wood or metal, it leaves a signature. It might leave a scratch, called a friction mark, or a deep dent, called a stamping mark. To capture these, we use a soft putty, often a substance called microscopic. We mix it and press it gently into the mark. It flows into the tiny scratches and hardens into a rubbery cast. When we peel it away, we have a perfect negative of the tool, down to the microscopic ridges in the metal. The ground is no longer just dirt and grass to us. It is a manuscript. Every dent, every scratch, and every flattened blade of grass is a word in a story. We have learned to read the heavy language of weight and motion. We have learned to capture shadows with electricity and turn footprints into stone. As we finish our work on the ground, the air around us seems to shift. We have studied the solid things, the hands, the feet, the tools. But life is also fluid. In the next part of our journey, we will look at the liquids that flow through us and how they move through the air. We will study the patterns of droplets and the stories written in red. For now, let the image of the stone footprint resting in the garden stay with you. It is heavy, solid, and true. The earth has kept its secret, and now we have kept it too. Rest your mind on this solidity. The ground holds you up, just as it holds the stories of those who walked before. The silence of our sanctuary deepens. We have studied the solid earth and the ridge-lined maps of our hands. Now, we turn our attention to something more fluid, something that moves with the grace of physics and gravity. We enter the world of liquid patterns. In the language of our casebook, this is the study of blood splatter patterns. But let us think of it as reading the geometry of flight. Imagine a single droplet. When it is airborne, it is a perfect sphere, held together by the gentle hug of surface tension. It is a tiny planet of liquid, traveling through space. When it lands, it does not just disappear, it writes a story upon the surface. It leaves a mark that tells us how it traveled, how fast it was going, and from where it came. We begin by looking at the shape of these stars on the ground. If a droplet falls straight down like a gentle rain on a windless day, it lands as a perfect circle. It is round and symmetrical. This tells us the drop fell freely, pulled only by gravity. But if the drop strikes at an angle, it changes, it stretches out. It becomes an oval, a teardrop. And here is a secret. The tail of the tear points the way. It points in the direction the drop was traveling. By looking at these elongated shapes, we can trace the path of flight, following the tails back to their beginning. We also listen to the story of speed. The size of the droplet is a whisper about velocity. A large, heavy drop tells of a slow movement, perhaps a gravity-fed fall. But a tiny drop, fine as a mist or a fog, speaks of high energy. It tells of a force that shattered the liquid into microscopic diamonds. This high-velocity mist often whispers of powerful events, like the swift passage of a bullet. Sometimes, we see patterns that look like the stroke of a painter's brush across a canvas. These are cast-off patterns. Imagine a paintbrush dipped in red paint, swung through the air in a wide arc. As the brush moves, droplets fly free, tracing a line across the wall or ceiling. By counting these arcs and noting their direction, we can see the rhythm of the movement. We can see the motion of the arm that swung the object, painting the air with history. There is also the rhythm of life itself. Sometimes the pattern rises and falls like a wave. It pulses. This is the arterial spurting pattern, a design created by the beating of a heart. It leaves a series of marks that show the pressure of life pushing against the silence. To understand the origin of these patterns, we must connect the stars. We look at the angles of the droplets on the wall. We use a beautiful method to find their source. In the past, watchers would tape long, thin strings to each droplet, pulling them back in straight lines through the air. Where the strings crossed, where the web converged, was the point of origin. It was a sculpture of thread, revealing the exact point in space where the event occurred. Today, we often use light. Small, portable lasers take the place of the strings. We shine these beams along the path of the droplets. The room fills with lines of red or green light, glowing in the dimness. It looks like a constellation map, a three-dimensional grid of light that points us to the truth. It is precise, mathematical, and starkly beautiful. We can even use simple geometry to check our work. By measuring the width and the length of a single droplet, we can calculate the exact angle at which it struck the surface. The math is gentle, a relationship of circles and lines, but it gives us a number that anchors the chaos of the scene in the certainty of science. As we stand in the center of this web of light and geometry, we realize that nothing is random. Every spot, every mist, every arc has a reason. The liquid has obeyed the laws of physics perfectly. It has frozen a moment of energy into a permanent record. We are careful not to disturb these patterns. We photograph them with scales and rulers, capturing their size and shape. We preserve the liquid memory before we step away. The room is no longer just a space. It is a diagram of forces, a map of flight paths now ended. The air in our scene feels different now. We have seen the solidity of the earth and the fluidity of the drop. But there is another force we must understand, the force of fire and propulsion. In the next part of our journey, we will look at the tools of heat and speed. We will examine the metal seeds that fly faster than sound, and the tracks they leave behind. For now, let the laser lines fade from your mind. Let the room return to its soft, shadowed quiet. The geometry is recorded. The story of the drop is told. Rest in the knowledge that even the most fleeting fluid leaves a mark that can be understood. The light from our lasers fades, leaving the room in a gentle hush. We have learned the secrets of the water and the earth. Now we must turn our attention to the mechanics of fire and speed. In our sanctuary of silence, we look at objects made of cold steel, designed to send tiny metal seeds flying faster than the speed of sound. This is the chapter of firearms and ballistics, but we shall call it the study of propulsion. Imagine a tube of metal, perfectly round and smooth on the outside. Inside, it holds a secret geometry. This is the barrel of a firearm. It is not just a pipe, it is a guidance system. Long ago, makers of these tools realized that to make a seed fly straight, it must spin. Like a top spinning on a table, or a planet rotating on its axis, the spin creates stability. So, inside this dark tunnel, they carved spiral grooves. These are called rifling. They curve gently, twisting like the inside of a seashell or the arms of a distant galaxy. When the metal seed, the slug, travels down this tunnel, the spirals grab it. They force it to twist. When it emerges into the sunlight, it is spinning, stable, and true. But this journey leaves a mark. The metal of the seed is softer than the steel of the tunnel. As it squeezes through, the spirals press their shape into it. The raised parts of the tunnel, called lands, cut deep valleys into the seed. The grooves of the tunnel leave raised hills on the seed. This interaction creates a signature. Just as the ridges on your finger are unique to you, the microscopic imperfections in the steel barrel are unique to that specific tool. No two barrels, even from the same factory, are perfectly identical. They all have tiny scratches, microscopic ridges, and unique patterns. When the seed flies free, it carries a perfect negative image of the tunnel it passed through. It carries the fingerprint of the machine. We look at these seeds under a microscope. Magnified, the cold metal looks like a landscape of canyons and plateaus. We count the lands and grooves. We look at the direction of the twist clockwise or counterclockwise. We look for the tiny striations, the scratches, that tell us exactly which tool sent this seed on its journey. It is a matching game of microscopic geology. The creation of this flight is a chemical event. It begins with a tiny spark. At the base of the cartridge, the package that holds the seed, there is a small cup of primer. When this cup is struck, it ignites. It creates a flash of intense heat. This heat wakes up the propellant, the gunpowder. The powder does not just burn, it expands. It turns from a solid into a cloud of hot gas in a fraction of a second. This gas needs room to move. It pushes with incredible force against the base of the seed, launching it down the spiral tunnel. It is a controlled storm, harnessed to create motion. This storm leaves a ghost behind. We call it gunshot residue, or GSR. It is a cloud of microscopic dust, vaporized metal, unburned powder, and invisible soot. It floats in the air like pollen. It settles on hands, on clothes, and on nearby surfaces. It is the dust of fire. We cannot always see this dust with our eyes. We use chemical swabs and sticky tapes to lift it gently from the skin. We use powerful electron microscopes to look for the tiny spheres of lead, barium, and antimony. Finding this dust tells us a story of proximity. It tells us who was standing near the storm when it broke. It connects the person to the event through the chemistry of the air. We also look for the casing, the brass shell that held the powder. When the energy is released, the machine often ejects this empty shell. It falls to the ground with a soft chime. This shell, too, carries marks. The firing pin that struck the primer leaves a dent, a tiny crater that is unique. The breech face, the wall the shell pushed against, stamps its texture onto the brass. Even the mechanism that throws the shell away leaves a scratch. These are tool marks, mechanical memories stamped into metal. In our quiet examination, we treat these tools with deep respect. We assume every mechanism is awake and loaded until we prove it is sleeping. We handle them gently, picking them up by the textured grip or the trigger guard, never touching the inside of the barrel where the delicate spiral story is written. We package the ammunition in paper, never plastic, to keep it dry and safe from corrosion. We have seen the spiral paths and the chemical clouds. We understand how the machine imprints its identity onto the metal it throws. The air is clearing now. The night, the dust of the fire has settled. Now, we must refine our vision even further. We are going to leave the world of heavy metal and enter the world of the almost invisible. In the next part of our journey, we will become hunters of the microscopic. We will look for the tiny fibers of the world, the hairs, the threads, the specks of glass and paint that drift like snow through our lives. We will enter the realm of trace evidence. Rest now. Let the image of the spinning spiral fade into the darkness. The energy has dissipated. The scene is calm again. The machine has fallen silent. The metal seed has come to rest. Now we must change our vision once again. We must learn to see the world not as a collection of objects, but as a swirling galaxy of particles. We are entering the realm of the invisible, the world of trace evidence. Imagine for a moment that you are walking through a field of tall grass. Even if you are careful, you brush against the stalks. You leave a little of yourself behind, a thread from your coat, a hair, a footprint. And the field leaves a little of itself on you, a seed, a smear of pollen, a speck of dust. This is the golden rule of our journey. Every contact leaves a trace. We are constantly trading pieces of ourselves with the world around us. In this quiet chapter, we become hunters of the microscopic. We are looking for found treasures hidden in the cracks of the floor or the weave of a sweater. We are looking for the dust that tells a story. Let us look first at the fibers of our lives. We are wrapped in cloth, and cloth is a restless thing. It is always shedding. Every time you move, thousands of tiny filaments drift away from you, like dandelion seeds in the wind. These are fibers. Under our microscope, a single thread becomes a beautiful, complex structure. A strand of wool looks like a rugged pine cone covered in tiny scales. A fiber of cotton looks like a twisted ribbon. But the fibers made by machines, nylon, polyester, are different. They were once liquid, pushed through tiny nozzles to become solid. When we look at their cross-sections, we see shapes. Some are perfectly round, others are squares or trilobular shapes that look like tiny three-leaf clovers. These shapes catch the light in special ways. They are the signature of the factory that made them. By matching a single microscopic clover-shaped thread found on a chair to a jacket miles away, we can weave a connection that is almost invisible to the naked eye. Then there is hair. It is more than just a fiber. It is a part of us, It is a biological record. As it grows, it drinks from the body's chemistry. It absorbs the things we eat and the environment we live in. A single hair can tell us if a person was taking medicine or living in a certain place. We look at the root of the hair. If it is smooth and rounded, it fell out naturally, a gentle ending to its cycle. But if the root is torn or stretched, it tells a story of force, of being pulled away before its time. Even the color is a landscape of granules under our lens, a pattern of pigment that is yours alone. We also look for the jewels of the seen fragments of broken glass. When glass breaks, it does not just shatter randomly. It creates a puzzle. We can look at the edges of the pieces, the fracture lines. By fitting them together, we can rebuild a window pane like a jigsaw puzzle. But even a tiny speck of glass, smaller than a grain of salt, has a story. We look at how it bends the light. We measure its density. We can tell if it came from a car window, a pair of eyeglasses, or a simple drinking glass. A shard of glass from a headlight can sometimes tell us the make and model of a car, narrowing the world down to a single possibility. And let us not forget the paint. Paint is not just a color. It is a history of layers. Think of a car. It has a primer, a base coat, a color coat, and a clear coat. It is a sandwich of chemistry. If a car scrapes against a wall, it leaves a chip of this history behind. Under our microscope, we see the layers like the rings of a tree or the strata of a canyon. We can match the sequence of colors and chemicals to a specific factory batch, tracing the vehicle back to its origin. Finally, we look at the humblest evidence of all: dirt. To most, dirt is just dirt. But to the trace examiner, dirt is a recipe. It is a mixture of crushed stone, decayed leaves, city soot, and ancient pollen. The dirt from a garden in the valley is different from the dirt on a mountain ridge. We look at the soil found on a shoe or a tire. We separate the grains. We might find a rare mineral or a bit of moss that only grows in a damp, shady forest. These tiny clues create a geological map. They tell us where a person has walked, even if they have traveled hundreds of miles. We are compulsive collectors of this dust, keeping little bottles of earth to compare with the world. We gather these specks with tweezers and vacuums. We lift them with tape and preserve them on slides. We are building a library of the infinitesimal. In this world, nothing is too small to matter. A single grain of sand can weigh the scales of truth. The air around us is filled with these silent drifters' fibers, hairs, dust. They settle softly, covering the world in a blanket of clues. We have learned to see the constellations in the dust. Now the room feels fully explored. We have seen the large and the small. But there are other stories to find, stories written with intent. In the next part of our journey, we will look at the messages left behind. We will study the ink, the paper, and the rhythmic loops of handwriting. We will enter the quiet study of questioned documents. Rest your eyes. Let the microscopic shapes drift away. The clovers of nylon, the ribbons of cotton, the layers of paint. The world is woven together by these tiny threads. You are part of that weaving, safe and connected in the quiet dark. The dust has settled. The microscopic fibers have been catalogued. Now we turn our gaze to a different kind of surface, one made of wood pulp and cotton, designed to hold the thoughts of the human mind. We are entering the quiet library of questioned documents. Here, paper is not just a carrier of words, it is a canvas of habits, rhythms, and hidden echoes. First, let us look at the ink itself. To us, handwriting is not just a way to communicate, it is a dance of the hand. Our brains are creatures of deep habit. Once we learn to write, the movement becomes a flow, a continuous thought transmitted through muscle and ink. We develop a voice in our lines. Some of us cross our T's with a sharp slash, others wait to finish the word and draw a long, lazy line back across the page. These habits are hardwired, like the way we put on our socks or wear a watch. When we look at a document, we are looking for this natural rhythm. Is the writing smooth and confident? Does the ink flow without hesitation? This is the sign of a truthful hand. But sometimes the hand pauses. It trembles. This is called a disguise. Imagine trying to write with your opposite hand. It feels awkward. You have to think about every curve. Your muscles fight against the unnatural movement. This struggle leaves a mark. The line becomes shaky, a quality we call tremor. The pen stops and starts, lifting away from the paper as the writer pauses to think about the next shape. These lifts are tiny breaks in the flow, hesitations where the truth tries to peek through. We look for these breaks. We look for the internal consistency of the script. A person writing naturally stays in one rhythm. A person pretending constantly slips back and forth, their natural slant fighting against the disguise. We do not look for personality in these loops. That is a different art. We look for identity. We compare the unknown, the Q, to the known, the K. We count the similarities, matching the unique way a G loops or an A closes. It is a game of matching patterns, finding the quiet consistency in the chaos of ink. But the paper itself has a memory deeper than the ink. Paper is soft and malleable. When you write on a pad, the pressure of your pen travels through the top sheet and presses into the pages below. These are indented writings, the ghost words of the past. To read these ghosts, we use a technique that feels like capturing a whisper. We use a machine called the ESDA, the electrostatic detection apparatus. We lay the paper on a special plate and cover it with a thin film. Then, we apply a static charge. The electricity clings to the microscopic dents in the paper, even if they are invisible to the eye. We dust the film with a fine toner, and suddenly the invisible words appear in dark gray. We can read a note that was written weeks ago simply by listening to the memory of the paper. We also look at the light within the page. If you hold a fine sheet of paper up to the sun, you might see a watermark. This is a translucent design pressed into the fibers when the paper was still wet pulp in the factory. It is the brand, the soul of the paper. It tells us where the sheet was born, and sometimes exactly when. We can trace a single sheet back to a specific mill, narrowing the world down to a single batch of pulp. Even the machines that write leave their fingerprints. A typewriter, with its clacking metal keys, is a distinct individual. Over time, its letters get chipped or worn. A T might lean slightly to the left. An E might be cracked. These imperfections are stamped onto the paper every time the key strikes. A printer, too, leaves a signature. The way it sprays ink or melts toner is unique to its mechanism. We can look at the trash marks, tiny specks caused by dirt on a scanner or a drum, and match a document to the specific machine that created it. And finally, there is the ink. Ink is a chemical recipe. It is a mixture of dyes, solvents, and pigments. Under a specialized light, different inks sing different songs. One black ink might glow under infrared light, while another disappears completely. By separating the colors, a process called chromatography, we can see the rainbow hidden inside a black line. We can tell if a paragraph was added later with a different pen, revealing an alteration in the story. The document is a frozen voice. It speaks through the rhythm of the hand, the pressure on the page, and the chemistry of the ink. We have learned to read between the lines, seeing the invisible indentations and the hesitation of the pen. Now we leave the quiet library of paper. The air is warm and heavy. In the next part of our journey, we will enter a place of profound transformation. We will visit the body human, exploring the chemistry of life itself. We will look at the tiny helix that builds us and the silent clock of nature that ticks even after the heart has stopped. Rest now. Let the rustle of paper fade. The story is written, and it is safe. You are drifting into the deep, calm center of life's mystery. The paper has been read, the ink analyzed. Now we cross a different threshold. We leave the world of manufactured things and enter the most profound landscape of all, the human body. In our quiet observation, the body is not just a biological machine. It is a crime scene unto itself, a living library written in the ink of chemistry and time. We begin with the fluid of life, blood. To the naked eye, it is simply red, but under the lens of science, it is a complex system of flags and signals. Long ago, healers realized that blood carried invisible traits. We call these the ABO types. Imagine the cells floating in the stream like tiny ships. Some fly the flag of A, others the flag of B. Some fly both, and some, the humble O, fly none at all. These flags are inherited, gifts from our parents. They follow strict rules of nature. If your mother gave you an A and your father an O, the A flag flies high. For years, these types helped us narrow down the truth. They could tell us who someone wasn't, but they struggled to tell us exactly who someone was. Millions of people might share the same blood type. To find the individual, we needed to look deeper, into the very heart of the cell. Here, we find the new fingerprint, DNA. Visualize a spiral staircase, twisting gently into infinity. This is the double helix. It is tucked away inside the nucleus of almost every cell in your body. It is the master blueprint, the code that built you. Unlike the ridges on your fingers which stay on the surface, this code permeates your entire being. It is in your blood, yes, but also in a single hair root, a drop of saliva on a stamp, or the sweat left on the band of a hat. This code is absolute. With the exception of identical twins who share the same beginning, no two people have the same spiral ladder. It is a sequence of 4 chemical letters, repeating in a pattern so complex that the odds of a random match are 1 in billions. We collect this delicate evidence with reverence. We know that sunlight, heat, and moisture can break the ladder apart. So we work quickly, drying the samples and keeping them cool. We use a process called PCR polymerase chain reaction, which acts like a molecular photocopier. It takes a tiny, invisible fragment of DNA and multiplies it, building a sample large enough to read. We look at specific spots on the ladder, the loci, where the code repeats itself like a stutter in a song. By counting these repeats, we build a genetic profile. It looks like a series of peaks on a graph, a digital landscape that is unique to you. But there is another story here, a matrilineal whisper. Inside the cell, outside the nucleus, float tiny power plants called mitochondria. They carry their own special DNA, called meant DNA. This code does not come from your father. It is a direct line from your mother, and her mother before her, stretching back through time. It is tougher than the nuclear DNA. It survives in old bones and teeth when everything else has faded. It connects families across generations. And speaking of endurance, we must look at the ivory keys of the body, the teeth. When the rest of the body has returned to the earth, the teeth remain. They are the hardest substance we have. Teeth are like geological records. They tell us of age and diet. We can look at the transparency of the roots to guess how many years a person lived. We can look at the wear on the crowns. And deep inside the tooth, protected by the enamel armor, the pulp holds a reservoir of DNA, waiting for us to unlock it. Sometimes, teeth leave their own mark on the world. A bite mark is a signature of force. The arch of the jaw, the spacing of the teeth, and the tiny chips and rotations of each individual tooth create a pattern that can be matched to a suspect. We photograph these marks with ultraviolet light, looking beneath the skin to see the bruising that lies underneath, capturing the memory of the event even after the surface has healed. The body is a vessel of truth. It carries the history of its ancestors in its cells and the record of its life in its bones. We have learned to read the spiral code and the ivory record. We have seen how the chemistry of identity survives even in the smallest speck of dust. Now, we must step out of the laboratory and back into the wild. The body does not exist in a vacuum. It exists in nature, and nature has its own clocks. In the next part of our journey, we will meet the smallest witnesses of all. We will listen to the buzzing of the flies and the silent growth of the flowers. We will enter the world of forensic entomology and botany. Rest now. Let the spiral ladder fade into the soft darkness. You are unique, a masterpiece of biology, written in a code that is yours alone. We step out of the quiet laboratory now. The air changes. It is fresh and alive. We are moving from the sterile world of glass and steel into the wild, breathing world of nature. Here, the witnesses are not made of metal or paper. They are the smallest creatures of the earth and the silent, growing things of the forest. In our Book of Secrets, this is the realm of forensic entomology and botany. Nature has its own rhythm, a heartbeat that never stops. It is a clock that ticks in the buzzing of wings and the opening of petals. To the watcher, these are not just bugs and weeds. They are living timepieces. Let us first look at the insects. Imagine a small fly shimmering with iridescent greens and blues. To most, it is just a buzzing annoyance. But to us, the blowfly is a precise biological clock. It arrives almost immediately when a life ends, drawn by a signal we cannot smell. The fly begins a cycle of profound transformation. It lays tiny, pale eggs. From these eggs hatch the larvae, the first instar. They are small and hungry. They feed and grow, shedding their skin to become larger, the second instar, and then the third. Finally, they seek a quiet place to rest. Their skin hardens into a dark shell, a puparium, like a tiny sleeping bag. Inside, a miracle happens. The creature dissolves and rebuilds itself, emerging days later as a winged adult, ready to fly. This cycle is as reliable as the movement of the stars. We know exactly how long each stage takes. By looking at the insects present, are they tiny larvae or sleeping pupae? We can wind the clock backward. We can calculate the days or even the hours since the timeline began. But this clock is powered by the sun. Insects live faster in the warmth and slower in the cold. So we must measure the temperature of the air and the soil. We listen to the weather reports of the past. We adjust our calculations, harmonizing the biological clock with the rhythm of the seasons. Now, look down at the flowers and the grass. The plant world is a map written in green. Plants are rooted in the earth. They do not move. If we find a piece of a rare vine or a specific leaf on a person, it tells us they have visited the place where that plant grows. It is a botanical anchor, holding a wandering story to a single patch of ground. The most powerful clue from the plants is invisible. It is pollen. Imagine a cloud of golden dust, microscopic and light. Flowers release these tiny grains into the wind to find each other. This is palynology, the study of dust. Pollen is sticky. It clings to clothes, to hair, and to the rubber of shoes. It is incredibly durable. Fossil pollen can last for millions of years. Because different plants grow in different places, the mix of pollen on a shoe is like a fingerprint of a location. A man might say he has never been to the mountains. But if we find the pollen of a mountain pine or a high-altitude wildflower in the cuffs of his trousers, the plants tell a different truth. They whisper of the journey he took. Plants are also calendars. Some flowers open only in the spring. Others bloom in the deep heat of summer. Some release their pollen only in the morning or close their petals at night. Finding a specific flower or pollen grain can tell us not just where an event happened, but when. It fixes a moment in the cycle of the year. Even the burrs that stick to a coat, the cleavers or cockleburs, are witnesses. They are nature's hitchhikers, waiting for a passerby to carry them to a new home. When we find them, they point back to the field or the forest path where they first latched on. In this quiet outdoor cathedral, nothing is silent. The hum of the fly, the drift of the pollen, and the growth of the leaf are all telling a story. We have learned to listen to the whispers of the wild. We have seen how the earth reclaims its own, and how life continues in a beautiful, endless circle. We are nearing the end of our journey now. We have traveled from the microscopic ridges of the finger to the vast map of the forest. We have gathered the dust, the light, and the time. In the final part of our story, we will bring all these pieces together. We will look at the people who weave these threads into a tapestry of truth. We will find our resolution. Rest now. Let the scent of pine and the hum of the summer air surround you. The natural world is watching, and it remembers everything. We have reached the end of our journey. We have walked through the silent rooms, touched the microscopic dust, and listened to the whispers of the earth and sky. We have gathered the pieces of the puzzle, the ridge, the drop, the fiber, and the seed. Now, in this final quiet moment, we bring them all together. We meet the people who weave these fragile threads into a tapestry of truth. These are the watchers we have been imagining. In the bright, clean rooms of laboratories, they work with a patience that rivals the mountains. They are the criminalists and scientists, but we can think of them as the keepers of the story. They are driven by a deep and quiet curiosity. To them, every day is a chance to learn something new, to find a pattern that has never been seen before. They do not work for applause. Their work is often hidden, done in the long hours of the night or the early quiet of the dawn. They write reports and document the chains of evidence, ensuring that every link is strong. They are motivated by a simple, profound desire to make a difference. They want to take the chaos of the world and put it back into order. Think of the photographer standing in the shadows. They capture the light. They freeze time so that a moment can be held forever. They use their cameras to see what the human eye cannot, the bruise beneath the skin, or the paint on a car that is invisible to the naked eye. They are the memory keepers. Think of the analyst staring into the microscope. They are solving a mystery. Like a reader turning the pages of a book, they need to know how the story ends. They find satisfaction in the answer, in the moment when the uncertainty fades and the truth becomes clear. It is a human need, this desire for closure. We are hardwired to want the narrative to be complete. These weavers take the reconciliation of all exhibits, dash the biology, the chemistry, the physics, and they create a voice for those who can no longer speak. They tell the story of what happened so that the healing can begin. They answer the question, and in doing so, they allow the past to rest. Now, you can rest too. The puzzle is solved. The evidence is gathered and kept safe in the library of science. The yellow tape is taken down. The world returns to its natural rhythm. The stars are wheeling overhead in their slow, eternal dance. The earth is breathing beneath you. Let go of the details now. Let the ridges and the spirals and the droplets fade into a soft white mist. You are safe. You are part of a universe that remembers everything. A world where truth is always waiting to be found. Drift away on this river of peace. The investigation is over. the story is told. Good night.